Welcome back to another episode of Trading Secrets, where I am joined by my fellow Bachelorette contestant, dear friend, and Bachelor Nation fan favorite, Blake Horstmann. If you watch The Bachelor, you might recognize him as the runner-up on Becca's season of The Bachelorette, and later in Bachelor in Paradise, which I told him not to go to, but we'll talk about that. Before he won Bachelor Nation over with his charm, he was killing it as a brilliant salesman for Coors Distributing Company. After the show, Blake kept selling beer for several months, but realized pretty quickly he was losing out on other opportunities that presented themselves by having that 9-to-5 job. Since leaving his job, Blake put all of his focus on growing his personal brand on social media. Started with a podcast and is now absolutely crushing it as a big shot DJ. My favorite part about having Blake on, which is I always knew I wanted Blake on, and we always talked about when it was going to be. I was thinking maybe it would be a little bit later because I think you have something in the works. Maybe we can talk about it. But when I saw you, Blake, on Stagecoach, performing in front of thousands and thousands and thousands of people, we got David here. David's joining us for the interview. I was just like, holy shit, this defines restart. I mean, you go from the highs of The Bachelorette to the really severe mental and career lows of coming off Paradise because of what had happened at Stagecoach. 2 years later, you're now hired performing in front of 4,000 plus people. I'm not going to start with the fluff. I'm going right into the rough. like, what is it feeling like just a few days off of that? Tell me the full feeling of what you're thinking right now.
Yeah, honestly, I'm still on a high. I really am. Like, I'm still scrolling through videos. Like my photographer and videographer keeps sending me these videos, and I'm still scrolling through them because it's hard to put into words not only what that moment felt like and that night felt like for me. I think there was a lot of validation in it for me. It was by far probably the biggest solo show that I've played. And when I first got to the tent, right, we're at the honky tonk tent. I get in the day before. I'm in there on Friday, and this is like one of those. It's basically a side tent, but it's one of the smaller side tents. You know what I mean? It's like the side tent. It's one in the back, and it's the only one air conditioned, which is fantastic. But I walk in there Friday during the day, and it's a lot of like line dancing and stuff. And I'm like, I'm not going to be playing this. Like, I don't know what to expect here, you know? And I'm like, God, no. And I do this at every show. I really, really do. I always think nobody's going to show up. You know, I really do. I just always am like, I don't know if anybody's going to show up. Like, why would somebody show up to see me? Blah, blah. And then of course, you know, it's packed and the energy is insane. And it was kind of the same thing. We got there about an hour before my set was to start on Saturday. It was kind of full, but not that full. And, you know, at a festival, like there, you know, it was Lee Brice before me. So people were probably waiting for Lee Brice to finish up. And I was just sitting there in the trailer like, man, what if nobody shows? What if nobody shows? And I walk out there, and the second that first like drop hits and I see everybody turn and just walk towards the stage, and I see people piling in from the sides, I was like, oh my God, this is going to be the most amazing night. And then just the energy. And I think one thing that I'm proud of, and that I really think that I do better than most DJs, and that is my energy on the stage and just how much I love doing what I love. And so just keeping that energy going for 2 hours, which is how long I played from beginning to end, was something I don't think I've seen before. Like, there was literally zero lulls. I didn't see somebody either on shoulders or hands in the air at any point for 2 hours. So it was a big moment for me, and a moment where I felt like, okay, like this not only gives me, you know, street cred, if you will, in the DJing world, because obviously, you know how it is, like as a contestant, sometimes you don't get the, you know, Bachelorette contest, you don't get the cred in mentor and influencer. So it felt like validation, street cred. And then at the same time, it was like, I had so many incredible DMs and people there who were like, I feel like a proud parent. And they're like, we've all watched you. Like, I had so many that were like, they're like, we've watched you, all the ups and downs. And then for you to come back 3 years later and to have this big moment. So that was really cool to see, and just see that those long-term fans, and now a bunch of new fans. A lot of people come in, sometimes the bar is like very low, you know, and they leave and they're like, holy shit, Blake's actually really good. So it was a surreal moment, to say the least.
That is awesome. I have so many questions about like the business component and everything associated with that entire stage and the people there. One thing I want to put into context: if someone is listening, they've never been to Stagecoach, and someone is saying, now I'm going to play like devil's advocate. Someone's like, yeah, but like, don't thousands of people just go to Stagecoach? So like, you're just on a stage, and of course they would be there. tell someone or explain to them what it's like when you go. Like, are there multiple stages? Do people like get an announcement that Blake's coming? Is it your music? Is it because of social media presence? What got people there, and what's that environment like when you're walking in for someone who's never gone or doesn't even really know what it's like?
Yeah. So yeah, great question. So Stagecoach is actually, it's literally on the grounds of Coachella. They don't take the main two stages down. So it's on the grounds of Coachella, and there's about 150,000 people that go to Coachella. Yeah, yeah, it's on the ground. Yeah. So I was there 2 weekends in a row. It was a lot, but yeah. So they literally leave up everything. Everything is just the same as Coachella, but there's only about half as many people. So there's 150,000. I think they said roughly this year, or maybe 200 at Coachella. I think there was like 80 to 85 at Stagecoach. So they block off half the grounds. So some of the huge stages they do block off. But you still have the main stage and the secondary stage, and yeah. So obviously, like, it's a big festival there. I think it starts roughly at noon. It goes till about 11 at night. And there are a lot of giant acts. We had Carrie Underwood this year, Luke Combs, and Thomas Rhett. And then you have some very small up and comers doing just tiny little, like, in the, even that, like a bar type vibe in the, there was like a Sheen club, if you will, like the clothing line. Yeah. So there's all those kinds of places. And my tent, if you will, was probably the third biggest tent. But the hardest part about getting people into this tent is basically, if you're looking at the main stage, you turn around and I'm at the very end. So it's like literally opposite stages or opposite parts of the grounds, if you will. So that is the hard part about getting people into that tent. It is air conditioned, which is huge because, it hits 100 like every day. So that's really big. People do love getting out of the heat. But I was lucky. Not only because I played in a great time. I played between Lee Brice and Carrie Underwood, which was a great time. I played during Brothers Osborne, who I love, don't get me wrong, but I think they would, maybe someday I would have wanted to play, during in that lineup that day. And at that night, it was 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. And yeah, honestly, they did announce me. They announced me about 6 months ago, got really good traction. And I was kind of just staying on it. And then leading up to it, probably the last 3 weeks leading into it, I did a giveaway, which was huge. I did some ticket giveaways with some meet and greets. And then I actually did a few reels of me, because I think a lot of people are like, what the hell does a DJ play at a country festival? They were like, what kind of vibe is it going to be? What can I expect? So I actually released a couple reels of me playing some remixed country music. And that got really, it's my number one viewed TikTok right now, and almost my number one viewed reel. So it got really good traction. And that was something I was like, oh, okay. Like, people love hearing this kind of like a cappella country over top of like house style music. And so I was like, okay, I got some here, and this is something I want to continue, because the reception was just incredible. So I think I got people talking like, oh, like this could be fun. Like, obviously Blake puts on a good show. We've seen him, the stories and stuff, but this kind of music could be a lot of fun and different than we've heard before. So I think that really helped as well.
That's cool. 2 questions for you. Getting on a stage and Stagecoach and playing in front of 4,000 people, obviously something maybe you never thought that you would ever do. How long have you been DJing for? Was this something that it was like quarantine hobby that you picked up, like, or, I left my 9-to-5 job, I need something to do. So how long have you been playing? And then quick part 2, do you wear your Apple Watch on stage? Because keeping an energy up for 2 hours, I need to know how many calories you're burning on stage during a show.
Yeah. So I'll answer the first part first. So, you know what? I've always been this music guy. Like, I've always been the guy, like, when I told my close friends, even not my close friends, just friends of mine and family, that I was going to, jump head first into this music world and this DJing, a lot of them were like, that makes complete sense, because you've always been kind of more or less the life of the party, and you love music. And I was always like the aux guy. You know what I mean? I was always the guys that people turn to, whether it be in college at my parties. Like, I was always the aux guy, whether it be the DJing in the car. Like, I was just me. I had the new music. I had all that kind of stuff, the cool remixes. So I really actually did. I kind of owe everything to Kaitlyn Bristowe. I started, I came off Paradise, and I was still under contract, and I was in a we'll get into it, but I was in a very weird point in my life where I had kind of more or less quit my job for the Paradise thing. And I was, looking forward to maybe what was going to come of that. And then it didn't obviously work out the way I'd wanted. And I just felt a little lost at the time. And I'll never forget when I got the text from Kaitlyn Bristowe. I was actually on an airplane, and I remember tearing up, because I felt like a bit like an outsider at this point in Bachelor Nation. Like, people were a little afraid to really put their neck out for me, or have me do certain things, related to them, whether it be, their brand or whatever it is. And at the time, I couldn't actually be like a guest on the podcast because I was still in a contract. So she was like, what do you think if you like DJ'd? And I was like, you know what? Okay, let's do it. Like I've never actually DJ'd for a crowd before, but let's do it. So I bought a little controller, and I kind of just messed around. You know, I think we ended up doing like, I don't know how many, like 10 dates, I think it was, or something like that. And honestly, like looking back, obviously I didn't really know what I was doing, but it was a moment for me being like, wait a minute, I think this is something I want to do. Like I was really passionate. I enjoyed the feeling of the crowd and like it's addicting. It very much addicting when you get that jolt of energy from the crowd and they're feeling you and stuff. And so I got a call from a good friend, Jason, of ours, called his name's DJ Silver, and he's an industry DJ. He's been there forever. You know, it's just kind of what he's been doing since he was young. And he has the first ever only DJ label. And he reached out and he's like, man, you know, like I was looking at your photos, your videos. He's like, I think this is something we should look at and something I think you'd be really, really good at. And so I was like, you know what, let's do it. And, you know, I think there was a moment where I almost was very scared, you know, I almost let fear kind of like scare me. And I was like, I was so scared to fail. And it's like, of course I'm going to get made fun of, which I did. I got made fun of a ton. Like, oh, look, Blake thinks he's a DJ now. But I put in the work. I went to school. I did the classes. You know, and I kind of just did a lot of gigs. I did some at smaller bars. I did some just at like backyards, that kind of thing, to kind of get into it. And then next thing I know, yeah, I mean, now I'm so passionate about it. It's something that I can't, I feel like I don't know what I was doing before this. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like now I'm at that point where it's like, what was I doing with my life before? And then, yes, man, like we talked about my energy. I have worn my Apple Watch. I wish I would have worn it. It was dead. I wish I would have worn a Stagecoach, because I remember I was about an hour in and I turned to my videographer and I was like, bro, I'm exhausted. I was an hour in. So, but I think one time I burned 2,200 calories at a local one in Denver in 2 hours, man. But that one was like an hour 45. Yeah. So I bet I burned 24 to 2,500 there on Stagecoach. And it's just your adrenaline's high the whole time. And then, dude, just looking into the crowd and just watching them lose their mind is just something. It's incredible. It's incredible.
It's got to be a high like no other. Yeah. I love that is what turned it around. And I think what also is interesting is seeing, because I obviously was partaking in a lot of those shows. It was cool to see your perspective of like, wait a second, being the Bachelor bad boys, not too bad. Like, you know, it's like the girls were going nuts for Blake. It was like a whole different type. And I got to see Blake right when we got off the show. Blake and I would do bar appearances and stuff, and we would get paid anywhere from like $3,000 to $5,000, show up, cash, sometimes less, sometimes $1,000, sometimes we just were like having fun. I got to see like the good boy edit Blake, and then I got to see the bad boy edit Blake. And it was a whole different energy. And I love that you also found a career to parlay into it. Now, people are going to hear what you've done. 2 years, you got into it, but you've always kind of had interest. You took lessons. You partnered with unbelievable people like DJ Silver, etc. I got to get to the meat and the potatoes. Next week, we have an influencer coming on who was the winner of Big Brother. She was on MTV The Challenge, and she was also on MTV X's on the Beach. She told me at Coachella, I'm going to tease it. She told me exactly how much she made with her brand deals. At a deal like Stagecoach, are you partnering brand deals with DJing, and what does like money look like in that space on a Stagecoach? And also in general, like someone's listening to this, like, you know what, maybe I'll try DJing at like the local bar, like I'll give it a shot or I'll take a class. What would you say the overall like money earnings potential is in the space? Those are two loaded questions, but we got to get to the money. That's what we do.
No, they're secrets. Yeah, they're great questions, because I didn't even really know coming in, you know, and I did have to lean on a lot of mentors and a lot of people in the industry, because you know, sometimes they tell me what they're going to pay and I'm like, wow, like, it's like that much, you know what I mean? And I think if you're in the nightlife industry, you get it. I think those kinds of people understand what DJs get paid, because basically this is the way I was told they look at it. And this is for like huge, like, okay, Stagecoach, for example, but also Vegas clubs and these clubs that are selling tables for $50,000 a pop. They literally, if they are able to sell one table extra or one table for more than they normally would because you're DJing, that is your payment. So that's how they kind of base what they're going to pay you, is like, hey, listen, we have a $50,000 table here. If we can charge 65 for that and it's going to go, then we're going to pay Blake $65,000. So but that's how it is.
Before, how would they know if Blake can sell that?
So that's the hard part. So that's the hard part with the places like Vegas and stuff. You really do have to have a pretty good rep for yourself. You have to have some serious credibility. But I mean, like Stagecoach, the coolest thing too, let me back up a little bit. One of the coolest things too, in my what I do is I DJ, but then I also bring that following. And so some bars just enjoy that I'm there posting and that I'm there advertising for their bar. Let's say I've gotten some really cool deals with like some new bars that pop up, and they're like, not only do we get an awesome DJ with Blake, but we also get this influence and these people, the eyes on this new bar in New York, in Texas, in California, wherever it is. So I actually have an ability to be a little more versatile as a DJ, and Stagecoach is a great example of that. I partnered not only with Stagecoach to DJ, but then I partnered with Stagecoach to post, and then I partnered with a couple other brands while they're on, on the festival grounds who were sponsors of Stagecoach. So I don't think every DJ is probably able to do that, you know what I mean? Because they don't have the following. So that's something that not only do I get paid to DJ, but I also get paid for the following and the influence of the eyes on the bar or club or whatever it is.
Got it. So
and the house that you stayed in.
And the house, exactly. The house I stayed into was insane.
I got it. This is my job to drill down. Stagecoach weekend with all the partnerships, under over 10K.
Over.
Under
I
over
almost got
20K.
Over.
Oh, under over 30K.
Over.
Under over 40K.
No, right there. Yeah, right there.
Look at this guy.
There you go. Yeah.
And the cool thing too is that, like, guys, this is, and yes, okay. I hear this a lot, and it's the truth. You go on the show, and yes, you got struck by lightning. I get that. But also doing something with it is so important. And doing something with anything in general, whether you're listening to this, no matter what you have, one connection, one person, one door you can open, there's an opportunity. And I love what you said earlier, Blake, is you were getting crushed before, right? You were getting crushed. When you tried this, when you tried to DJ, people were like, dude, you're like, I remember people coming at you for it. Full circle, to see that and to hear those numbers is truly an inspiration.
Yeah, you can call it luck lightning, but he also had to propose on national TV and get denied, and then get dragged through the mud in paradise. So I don't know how many people on the planet can handle that type of luck lightning. So really commendable though. And I know we're huge fans of yours. So to see you crushing it is just the best. So
thank you.
Congratulations.
And one of the things you said too about like Bachelor people siding and like not like having your back in those situations is such a real thing in this world.
Yes.
And so I think that's something that is like really important. The other thing I want to quickly touch on with the DJ thing, I think if you're listening to this and you have an interest, one of the reasons, like I even said, Blake and I would get paid, if we're looking at the business case, why would Blake and Jason get paid a few grand to show up at a bar for an hour, right? It's ridiculous. But if you look at the business case, some of those clubs or some of those bars, what is their objective? This is just exactly what they told me. Their objective is they want to get high energy and more women in the door. And as a result of that, more women are going to increase the energy of the place, is what the bar owners told us. And as a result of that, they're going to get more men, more spending, more just like excitement, more hype on social media. They say it all leads the bar industry. And this doesn't go for every bar. Of course, every bar has its niche, but most bar industries or clubs lead with getting women in the door. And so on top of having a following, you have a following that is 97% women. And so if there is someone out there that's listening that has a female following or female group, you have a ton of leverage if you can bring them into that bar. I think it's really cool that you did that. I want to ask you about like those Vegas DJs real quick before we get over the DJ talk. Steve Aoki, some of these like big time DJs, you're in the industry now. What are the big time Vegas DJs getting for a set, for a night of work?
Yeah. So for somebody, that's a great question coming off of what you just said, because my kind of the person who obviously like in my world, as far as like kind of, has a reality TV following, DJs, this high energy, whatever, DJ Pauly D, right? DJ Pauly D. He's been doing it since way back. He was like the OG, he's like the OG reality TV DJ, if you will, or the one with, that kind of following. And he was the 15th highest paid DJ in the world. Would have been right before COVID hit off, and he made 15 million in 2018. 15 million. That man's pulling about. Hey, he actually just posted, because I follow him. He just posted his calendar for this coming month, for May. 16 dates, and he gets about 50K to more a date. So yeah, he's making $500,000 a month, maybe more. So he's pulling, and that's just And that's like, I mean, I guess it is like June and May, and we're going in the summer and spring break. But I bet in spring break, I bet that man pulls 100K a show, you know, because he's pulling the exact audience you just mentioned. He's pulling women, high energy, who just want to party. And that is what I do. I pull, and I tell everybody, if there's ever a bachelorette event in your city, gentlemen, go, because it is all women. It is 90 to 95% women, you know? So yeah, it's crazy.
Okay. Those are crazy numbers, especially because David and I, for his bachelor party in Vegas, we went to see Pauly D. We got to go up on stage and meet Pauly D.
That's cool.
But I'll tell you what, he was a sweetheart of a guy, super nice. I was not that impressed with his DJ skills. I was like, is he even DJing?
Yeah.
So ask me, I want to take it a step further. For someone like yourself, for someone like him, he's now making $15 million a year. How many people, and obviously you and him are in different scenarios and stuff, but you're 3 years removed from the show. How many people do you think are starting to come to watch you because you are Blake and a great DJ, versus how many people are coming because they know it's going to be massive girls going, versus how many people are strictly coming because they know you're from the show? What do you think?
So I think a couple years ago, it was literally strictly because I knew me from the show. Especially one of my second gig ever was Atlantic City. And now looking back, you know, like I got through it and they actually offered me a residency, but COVID hit. But looking back, I remember being like, man, I really didn't know what I was doing. Like I was faking it till you make it kind of vibe, you know, in there. And I did it and they enjoyed it. But looking back now, like that crowd was there because I was Blake from The Bachelorette. Where now I really do think that there are people coming, and sometimes there are those people who come to dog me and then they leave. Though one of my favorite things is they leave being like, oh, I'm a fan of Blake as a DJ, not a fan of Blake as a reality star, you know? So I love that. But I think now I'm getting to the point where people are like, okay, let's see what the hype is about. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, I've seen the videos, I've seen all the love. He just played, you know, 4,000 to 5,000 people at Stagecoach, like, and it looked insane. Like, let's go see what the hype is about. And then the coolest thing too is these residencies. And I played 14 gigs now in Denver, and every single one we have like a bonus if you hit a certain number. Every single one we've hit that bonus.
What is the
and
number,
so
amount of people that come?
Amount of people that come through the door, and a bar tap, like a bar min, if you will. They got to hit, I don't know what it is, but yeah, they got to hit a certain number at the bar.
So, but a deal like that, like a Denver bar, you're not getting paid as much as you are at Stagecoach, right? There's no way.
No, but what's crazy too is, like, obviously, yes, you're right. Local bar, Nashville, dude. Nashville does not pay DJs, and I don't blame them. Like, they have some world-class musicians.
So much demand.
Yeah, exactly, right? Exactly.
Okay,
yeah,
so much demand to just be at those
Nashville,
bars regardless.
Nashville, you can get honestly, like, you can DJ for 4 hours, get like $1,000 maybe. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's so. But in Denver, somewhere like Denver, where there's not a ton of like giant DJs coming and stuff, and I'm a consistent, once a month to twice a month there. I'm still pulling more money than most local DJs pull, like, or most DJs pull at huge places. You know what I mean? And it's worth it. And I remember when I signed this deal and we put the bonus in because we weren't sure what it was going to look like playing over and over again in a city. Like, I wasn't sure, like, oh, we saw Blake last month, let's not go. But it's been, and I think that's the coolest part, is I'm getting all these return customers. So I'm getting people who are like, let's go see Blake for the 4th time. I was on a flight today to Miami, and the flight attendant, this was actually a cool moment. I remember this. I told the person next to me, I was like, this flight attendant didn't say, hey, that's Blake from The Bachelorette. She said, hey, I went to your show last month. That was a cool moment. Like, that was like, oh,
dream right there.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I want it to be. Yeah. I was like, oh my God, she came to my show and she said hi because of that, not because of my Bachelorette season, 4 years ago, whatever. So yeah, I think I'm getting to the point where people are not only coming just to see, like, to have fun and whatever. There's a lot of girls there, but they're like, okay, let's see what this hype about. And there was some girl did a TikTok recently where she was a Bachelorette party, and one of her friends just was like, do you want to go see Blake? And they were coming already. And she was like, no, fuck that guy. And then they did a like journey of her on my show. And it started out with her hating me. Then her kind of started to be like, oh, he's pretty good. And then by the end of it, she's like, Blake, I love you. Just like screaming. Yeah. So that's about how my shows go. Yeah.
All right. I got one quick question that I want to drill down on that. I know David does. I can see it in David's eyes when he's ready to go. He's a Canadian. So give me an idea though, at like, I'm thinking about relating it back to like the book tour, right? For anyone listening, one of the events that we sold out, we're negotiating with them as how we're getting paid. And you could get like a little fee up front, or you could take a higher risk and just say, you're going to take all the ticket sales. So they'll give you all the ticket sales, and then it's a higher risk though if you don't sell out. And then you can even get further and negotiate, like, you'll get all the ticket sales plus a percentage of food and beverage sold that night. So that's how that could work. In a DJ world and like your bonuses and stuff, are you like $3,000 a night? And how are bonuses work?
Yeah, so that's we really do. And you try obviously to work with certain like bar, or you're excited about a city, and this bar kind of reaches out like, listen, we don't have the budget for, you know, I usually try to go for somewhere between 7 and 10. Like that's usually where I try to go.
Yeah.
And they're just like, listen, we have $4,000.
Sure.
And it's, yeah, right. And I'm like, okay, like, let's see what we can do. So we do a meet and greet. The meet and greet's a big one. And we take 100% of the meet and greet. Or we do a percent. Yep, exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And then also I'll take a percent of the bar. So we try to work with, you know, certain clubs. If it's a really fun city we want to have, or it seems like it was like a, you know, let's say DJ Silver was like, this place is dope, like it's going to go off. I'm like, okay, we'll work with them kind of thing. But yeah, there is a lot of negotiating. I honestly leave that up to my buddy Eric Bradley and a lot of my Blackout label, because I'm terrible at negotiating. So that's just something I know is a weakness of mine. So I'm like, you guys take care of it kind of thing. But yeah, there definitely are ways around, like, let's say they only have, you know, a certain budget. We try and work with them.
Cool.
Yeah.
I know how excited Jason gets when people come up to him and say, hey, you're the guy from Restart, or I love your podcast, instead of like, oh, from the show. So I can only imagine the feeling that you have there. What's your dream now that you've played Stagecoach? What's your dream venue, place for you to DJ at? And what's your, you know, we're almost through, we're entering summer 2022. What's your goal, monetary goal for 2022 from DJing?
So I obviously, listen, I grew up down the street from Red Rocks. You know, I grew up 15 minutes from Red Rocks. Now, like, you know, maybe one day, you know, I have some of my original, you know, I have an EP dropping by the end of the year. That would be amazing to headline at Red Rocks. But even just to be an undercard at Red Rocks is something. My first concert was at Red Rocks. You know what I mean? And if you guys don't know, it's one of the, you know, one of the best venues in the world. It's voted. Actually, I think they named the award the Red Rocks Award because it won the award so many times. So that is definitely, you know, a dream of mine for sure. And then as far as like a Stagecoach, I want to play. So Diplo played Stagecoach this year. He played Sunday nights, the after party, which goes absolutely insane. And I want to play that same stage, like the Friday or Saturday night. Like, that's my goal, is the Palomino stage. Because I really think I can do it. And then they only play for like, 45 minutes, 50 minutes. I'm like, I could put the dopest set together in 50 minutes, you know, like it'll be fucking nuts. And so it's super interesting. You just kind of asked the annual thing, because this is the first year I ever made a goal, as far as like, you know, the amount of gross profit I want to make, in 2022. And it was a very lofty goal, and it was a very, very lofty goal. I got some other things, you know, down the line this year that I'm really excited about. And that goal was, I wanted to make things? 7 figures. Yeah, a couple things. But that goal, some big things. No comment. No, it's some pretty big things. And so, you know, I kind of knew I can't fucking say too much. Okay.
Dude, I
don't want to get you sued. I don't want to get sued.
The thesis of the show is to talk about money, not in a braggadocious way.
But
right. That people can learn the industry. If maybe there's one person that is like, you know what? I've been thinking about DJing, I have the skill set, and they do it because of this show, and they take off and you change your life.
Yeah. So my goal this year was 7 figures. I wanted to hit $1 million gross.
Oh, yeah.
And it was one of those goals where I was like, I knew it's definitely, you know, a possibility, but I found a couple months into the year, because I had one kind of lower month, and I was like, I felt so like terrible. You know what I mean? I felt like I was just like terrible at my job and my life. And I was just like, what's going on? And I kind of started to lash out at some people around me and stuff. And it was, I kind of sat back down. I was like, listen, obviously I want to hit that goal, and that'd be great. But at the same time, like, I try to remember what I was, you know, my life looked like 4 years ago, or even 2 years ago, or a year ago, and what I'm now pulling in, you know, monthly. And so I think it's something that I'm trying not, like, I want to hit that goal and I'm striving for it, but I don't want to kill myself over it and maybe ruin some relationships, professional and personal, because I'm not necessarily hitting the goal that I want to hit. So it's this balance that I've never had a goal like this before, as far as money, because, you know, I had a 95 and everything like that. So this is something I've never had to deal with before. So it's something new to me for sure.
I think it's cool.
When you play Red Rocks, Jason and I will be there.
Yeah, it's okay. Oh, yeah, you guys haven't even seen me yet. You guys got to come out.
No,
this summer.
We'll be hyped.
I went down, we were at the David Ortiz event, and there were, there just weren't that many people. It was a VIP party only. I say VIP not to sound like I'm cool, but it was just the people that golfed in the charity event. All golfers were there. And I was going nuts. It was so fun. Jumping. My calves got the best workout, David. Hour and a half by myself, fist pumping, jumping. I was going nuts. So we need to go to a full show. That is for sure. I don't want to lose the comment I wanted to say, though, because I think it's really good to have financial goals, but those financial goals, it's so important for them not to like drive like those behaviors that you have, especially in this world, because there's so many highs and so many lows. The one thing I would just focus for you, Blake, is just like crush this brand every day. What are you doing to differentiate yourself as a DJ? How are you honing in on this craft? And you already know the industry, that money is going to roll in. It's just like, what are you doing to differentiate and build that Block A, Blake DJ, so that everyone knows? That is what should make you happy or sad, how much effort, time, and creative you're putting into that, I think. One question I got, in this world, you had already mentioned there's a DJ label. And I know the influencer space, we talk about it all the time. Usually commissions are like 10 to 15%. What do you have to pay how does a label work in DJ world?
Very similar. Depending. So the label that I have 20%. Yeah, it's very similar. In fact, I mean, basically it's like having, like a tour manager, if you will, type thing. And then where it gets really interesting, and we haven't even figured it all out yet, is when it comes to like, original music, Spotify plays, those kinds of things. That's when it starts to break down, because label does, get a piece of that and that kind of thing. And then you have to pay like, I wish I was a singer. I'm not. I mean, we're going to have to give the singer some of the percent, the things like that. So that is something that we're starting to work on. But as far as like, just like the label itself, or like a tour manager, whatever that is, whoever the books, that is usually 15 to 20%.
Okay, cool. And we've heard some of your highs. I also think it's really important on this podcast in general, not to just talk about the highs, but like the grind of getting there. We've heard some of those huge deals, the goals that you have for making this a full-time career and a life-changing career. When you were starting out, like when you think about like DJ Blake is starting to get go, what are some of like the worst deals and rates that you accepted just to get your foot in the door?
Yeah, I mean, there was a couple times I played F45 gym during one of their workouts. I just wanted to get out there and I just wanted to work on my set. And they were literally like, hey, like, we'll give you a free class if you come out and DJ for us. I was like, fine, I'll do it. So that's the biggest thing, is I can sit at home. And if there's any other DJs out there that want to listen to this, like I can sit at home and I can play my set and I can get it perfectly. I can get the mixes right. I can get the drops right. But then if you can get in front of people and people are throwing things at you, people are flashing light, those phones up on their forehead, play this, play that. And the distractions and the energy and everything. And you miss one drop, man, and it can ruin the entire energy of the room. So, and I've done it. Oh yeah, I've done it. I have done it where you miss one drop. I was playing in Chicago at 115 Bourbon Street a couple months ago. It's the first time this has ever happened. It is a DJ's nightmare. I was playing middle of a sing-along, like the middle of the sing-along, and it's a dope drop and everything. And all of a sudden the entire controller just goes out and they keep singing. And then they realize like the music is gone. And all of a sudden I start getting boos. I just start getting boos. Oh man, it is horrible. And I was able to wave down the audio guy and he was able to put some house music on. And then we were up and running another 5 minutes. And then, it ended up great. But that was like a nightmare. You know what I mean? It's like the worst feeling ever. It's just like you got the energy and all of a sudden, boom, the energy, it just deflates the whole crowd.
Wow.
And as far as my, my DJ career, like I started out, I went to classes. Denver actually has one of 4 DJ schools in the country. So I got lucky there. And so, went to class, I did that whole thing. I put in the work. I had one gig in Phoenix, played that. And then I had the Atlantic City gig at the Premier Borgata in Atlantic City and felt really, really good about it. And then I got a call to do a residency there once a month for 4 months, and COVID hit. And talk about like just getting started in like a new career. And then the one industry that literally got just demolished by COVID. Yes, just completely everything. And I know there's a lot of DJs out, I was lucky enough that I had another stream of income and I had some saving. But there's a lot of DJs I know that had to like, sell their places or live on couches. So it was just an industry, the industry just completely got destroyed. And so kind of we were just getting started and trying to then get back into it and contact all these clubs that we had booked. And they're like, listen, I don't know, he's too much right now. We have no money. We didn't have anybody in the doors for 2 years. So that was a challenge in of itself. Was COVID was kind of coming back out of that. And I did have to take some, lower payments for some bars because they just didn't have the money because they didn't have anybody in the door for 2 years. So that was a challenge.
So $1 amount, love the rebound and the fact you stuck with it. $1 amount, not for free. The lowest amount of deal you've done for a DJ set in the career.
So, I mean, I've done a couple of free ones, but I think the lowest actual like at a bar posting that kind was 2,000, which
okay, it's good content.
Yeah. And it's funny because I skipped an entire level of playing an 8-hour set for $500 at your local bar, and I did that with my platform. So I did skip over that. I have played it 3 hours here and there, but I skipped that like 8-hour set at like the local bar on a Tuesday. You know what I mean? So yeah. I did kind of jump that. But yeah, 2,000 is the lowest I played.
Interesting.
Yeah.
When you said you missed a drop at some shows, I think a lot of people have the perception out there that they're called like plug and play DJs, where like you actually make a set and mix it at home, and then you get to your show and you just hit play, and then you're just hyping up the crowd and be all antics and hands in the air, and you're not actually touching anything. So dismiss those people at home. I actually watched a really cool Netflix documentary on like the history of DJing, which is an incredible documentary. Cool. If you haven't seen it, it's unbelievable. It goes into the history of how it started and how it got to be and all the shows and festivals. And they talk about this. So shed some light on that for the people at home that just think you just press play and just go, crazy for 2 hours.
Yeah. And that's funny because I have to watch that documentary because it still blows my mind what these old DJs did. They literally would walk in with suitcases of vinyls and just like on the run, like just it's mind blowing to me because we are spoiled with technology right now. What's even crazier, Calvin Harris. So he's actually, I think the Chainsmokers just jumped Calvin Harris as the most paid DJ, but Calvin Harris would roll up to a club with a USB plug and get paid $100K. There's no overhead. There's no nothing. And then he'll fly 3 hours later, he'll be in another country or whatever and play again. I think Loud Luxury, who I've met them a couple times, they're fantastic. They did a 36 hours. They played 4 gigs in 36 hours. It was just bonkers. They started at 3 a.m. at Space Miami. And then so that's the thing about DJs is they don't have these equipments. We don't have the band. We don't have any of that. There's no overhead. They just plug that USB in and they mix. So it's bonkers. And then as far as, the plug and play and that, listen, I hear this a lot. They're like, oh, look, Blake just pushes play and then runs around the stage. I'm like, no, I don't. I wish it'd be a lot easier. But one thing that I am, and that I think there's a reason I have a computer, like I DJ with a computer. That's because I'm an open format DJ. So I play what the crowd is vibing to. I don't put together like a playlist before. So if I play Katy Perry and the crowd is like, what in the hell is this? I'm like, okay, no more early 2000 pop or whatever, So I'm like, okay, now I got to switch my whole setup and I'll play a little bit more house. I've been to I did an event in Iowa at Iowa University after their like freshman orientation. And I played like some, oh my God, what song was it? I can't remember. It was some rock song from like the early, and I realized at the time of freshman orientation, these people were like 18 years old. Yeah, dude, I played this song and they were kind of just like looking at me and I was like, oh, they just want to mosh pit. I was like, that's all they want to do is mosh pit. So I had to completely change my set around and just play like high energy, it was crazy. So yeah, I don't just plug and play. I'm an open format DJ, which is what it's called. And that's why I have this computer because I have, 30,000 songs on here that I'm able to choose from. I have some that I enjoy playing and most of the time they hit pretty hard. But yeah, so that's kind of the difference between a plug and play and like an open format.
I can attest to it too, though, because we David Ortiz event. I think he started playing like Blink 182. David Ortiz, like, dude, this guy's as like G as it gets. He's got more swagger than maybe any human I've met. All like blinged out. He like comes up and whispers like, "Man, you're not this."
I was like, okay. All of a sudden, I play Pepe's today.
Because that was like
Latin music. Yeah,
is that what he asked for? Latin music, right?
Yeah, he wanted Latin. He wanted Latin and like Mamba and like he something else. And his manager came up too and was like, listen, you gotta. I was like, okay, I did. And then once he left, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go back to what I was playing. But
the drastic change of like watching the floor based on those, it brought different like energy and everything, but still you kept energy high in both of those segments, which was pretty cool.
It's called What We Started. Is the Netflix
What We Started?
Document. What We Started, yeah.
Okay, I'll have to look into that. Yeah,
it's really good.
There we go. That is it. Yeah. That is pretty cool. I mean, I think we spent more time about the DJing stuff, but to me, like that is the premise of most of this podcast is like really
Mhm.
focusing on career and like where you're at and everything. One thing you have said in the past though, Blake, is you've said in Q&As, I think I've seen it, if you get a chance to be the Bachelor, it's like hitting the lottery. So I think about like your career, and I agree with your statement 100%. It's like a golden parachute is what I say. But I do think that's changing a little bit these days.
I do too.
But that being said, you look at your career now. You got the trajectory of DJing. You've been in influencing. You have a podcast, and you made the comment about the Bachelor. Of all four of those, if you could be the Bachelor, really blow up a podcast, continue your DJ trajectory, or staying and influencing and really trying to grow your influencing, which of those do you think will be the most lucrative, and which of those would you have the least interest in doing?
So I think like the ceiling money wise, like being lucrative, I think is the DJing. But of the four things you just mentioned, I think DJing is probably the hardest work. I think that is, I hit, 8 cities last month. So, I mean, it is a lot of work. It's a grind. But once you get to the point where you're charging 30, 40, 50K, a 2 hour, an hour set, then that's when the real money starts coming in. And that is the goal. So I'd say the ceiling as far as, money is definitely DJing. And then, but you look at influencing too in this, and there is a lot of work that go into influencing. For those of you that don't think there is, there really is. If you're very good at it, there is. There's a lot of creating content.
I don't want to act like it's like labor, but there's a lot more than people
think. If you're good at that, and you really crush it, that could be lucrative. And then as far as like what I want to do, it would be DJing. It really would. I don't think even, the Bachelor, definitely, especially like you just said now, I don't think it's worth it, unless you do find the love of your life. The odds of that are very, very slim. And then, as far as just DJing, the feeling, one of these days, y'all got to come to one of my big shows, and you can be up there in the crowd, and you can be up there on stage, and you can feel what I feel. And it is something that, it's hard to describe. It would be DJing all around.
We will be there.
Yes. I'll let you guys know. I'm going to maybe play a pretty big one for 4th of July. So I don't know what you guys got planned or anything, but I'll keep you updated. So.
I have no plans at this point. So
okay, I actually have no plans.
There we go. Let me know as soon as you can, though.
Good. I'll let you guys know.
All right. So those are some of the highs of where you're at today. I do want to talk about, and we talked about a little bit on the book tour, is some of the lows. And I don't want to get into like, we don't need any more headaches than we may already have. But I don't want to get into Bachelor production and editing and Bachelor stuff with Paradise and how you got screwed. What I do want to get into, because I think it's really important, I think it's very relatable for anyone that's stuck, is hearing from someone that has been stuck. You guys just heard from Blake, if you're listening, about the unbelievable success he's having. But there were really, really dark lows for you. I remember those conversations. I remember the tears. I remember the not knowing where you're going to turn. And that was a tough Blake. And it was scary to be friends with you, because I was like, I don't know what I could possibly do to help. But I was so worried. You've come a long way, which is amazing. But tell me about what that was like when you were in that dark place. And tell me a little bit about any type of insight you can give for someone that feels maybe somewhat of how stuck you were, or is actually feeling just as stuck as you were too. Because I think it's an inspirational story, and any insight could help someone.
I appreciate it. Yeah. And I actually love getting asked about this, and I love speaking on it, because you're right. Like, even if it can touch one person, and that's kind of why I've been so open about it, it can make all the difference, and it's definitely worth it. And yeah, man, you did. You saw me when I was as low as I could go. I always say everybody's got a rock bottom. Some people's are just a little deeper than others, but at some point you're going to hit that rock bottom. You know what I mean? And so the one thing I felt, obviously a bit of a bigger stage, but a weird stage too, I was kind of in front of the world at the time, or the country at the time. And that was just like, I felt so alone. I felt so alone, because I felt like my family and close friends, they couldn't really relate, because they don't know this world in the way, if I'm like, oh yeah, man, like I just, I got a bad edit, or I got like a bad episode tonight, and Twitter's all over me. They're like, so turn it off. Like some of my friends are like, so, and they don't quite get it. But then I couldn't also, it was very hard for me to turn to a lot of people in Bachelor Nation, because I felt like I was being a burden, I was kind of being a burden. And a lot of the people, looked at me now as like damaged goods. I was damaged goods at the time. And so it was like, I don't want to stand too close to this, I don't want to ruin my brand, stick my head out. for him and for, who he is as a man, or, his character. And so that was a really hard moment for me. I felt so alone. And, we talked about this, Jay, like I don't think I left bed for close to, over 2 months, just because I felt like the world was crashing down on me. Like if I went to the grocery store, somebody would be like, "Oh, you're a fucking, you're worse, you're a horrible human." So I just was ordering everything in. My Postmates bill were just insane. And I was just like, I was so scared to go outside. And I got probably as low as I've ever been and hope to ever be. And, as low as I probably could be before doing something drastic. And something happened to me, and I got out of bed, and I just decided to walk to the local gas station and get a Gatorade. And it was, I don't know if it was the fresh air, if it was just a point where it was like, sink or swim, like either you get up and do something or it's going to get worse. And so I did, and I got that Gatorade and I felt a little bit better. And then the next day I walked a little further, and then the next day I walked a little further, the next day a block, the next day a couple blocks. And then before I knew it, I was back in the gym, but I don't want to sit here and act like that happened overnight, because I think that's a very important thing to remember, that you're not going to get better. Nobody's going to say one thing to you that suddenly changes your life and makes you better. You can go to therapy all you want, but don't expect one therapy session to change everything for you, because that's not the case. It takes work. You have to work on yourself, and it takes time. You have to be patient. And just because somebody got over something quicker doesn't mean that you should get over that in the same time. If they lose their job and they go into depression for a month and you go in 6 months, that doesn't make them any better than you, and you any worse than them. So I think that's an important thing to remember. And just it takes time. It took me months to finally get out of it. And then I still, for a good year to 2 years, and sometimes I still do have bad days, good days and bad days. And so there was still months and months and months of me having like, what am I doing? Like, I messed everything up, that kind of vibe. So yeah, I mean, my biggest thing I took out of that was not everything changes overnight. And, just because you're feeling down now, you put in the work, and you can't come out of it. You can't come out of it.
One of the things we had, and thank you for sharing that, and I think there's so many takeaways from that. And like for me, one of that big takeaways too is like putting in the work, but also like really, really small wins can build massive, massive momentum, right? Like just getting up, getting out of your house and going to get a damn Gatorade. That's a huge win, and that can build to the next thing. So I think that's so important. But one of the things I wanted to ask you about is, so you go through that period. We just had Molly Bloom on for Molly's game, and she talked about like her highs and $4 million a year from running these underground games. And she gets busted by the FBI. 17 guys are coming in with machine guns. And I asked her, when you hit rock, because you talked about rock bottom, if you didn't hit rock bottom, would you have ever changed anything in your life? And her answer was, no, it would have gotten worse, because she was starting to do more drugs. She was starting to like get involved with more gambling. She was taking the highs of things and moving in a direction that wasn't her. And she felt as though she needed that rock bottom to like readjust her. When you look back at that time period, especially where you are today, what do you feel about hitting that place? Do you think you had to be there to get where you are today?
Yeah. So by the way, I listened to that podcast because Molly Bloom is Colorado. She was like, I grew up worshiping her brother as a football player.
Denver. Yeah.
He was the best punt returner in the league in CU Boulder. I worship that family, dude. I love that Bloom family.
Wait, is that who she's married to?
No, her brother.
It's a brother.
Oh,
her brother.
I was like, I didn't even know. Yeah.
No, her brother was he was drafted by the Eagles and everything. And I was a huge fan at the time of him when he played for CU Boulder. So I was a big fan. So I listened to that. And that was a really good podcast.
I want to hear your answer, but wasn't it interesting when she said, like, when she had tested her greed, when she was talking about the fact that like she attested to the fact she lived in this family of all these high achievers, she just wanted a place at the table. It goes to exactly what we just said about her brother.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, exactly. That family isn't crazy. Yeah, very, very talented and crazy. But what was the question? The rock bottom, did it change? Yeah. So yeah, man, actually, I haven't sat down and really thought about that, but I definitely think that was something that was supposed to happen to me. And it wasn't like, I was in this like before paradise. I was in this like terrible, like I wasn't doing a bunch of illegal shit and doing drugs and that kind of thing.
Sure.
But at the same time, it was, something that I think that weird year, and you kind of went through it. You did start dating Kaitlyn, but I went through a very weird year between Bachelorette and Paradise where my life was just a mess as far as like, it was just a tornado of just like, you got to be here for this, you got to be there for that, you do this appearance, you do this ad, and you do this. And I was just kind of like, it feels like such a weird moment in my life where I didn't really have a lot of direction. And I didn't like, it was like, okay, I'm going to do Paradise, and then what? You know what I mean? Like, yes, I'm making more money, you know, a lot more money than I would have at Coors, but at the same time, it's like I didn't have any like what next. And it was basically just to like hopefully find somebody in Paradise and then keep influencing, you know, like that was kind of like it, you know. So now that I have, you know, a career, more in a career than I've ever really had, I definitely do think that I got to give, you know, that everything it's very cliche, but everything happens for a reason.
Sure.
And, you know, as much as that was a bad moment, I've gotten over a lot of the bad blood and all of that. It just seems like a lot of the people involved, I'm friends with most of the people involved with all of that drama and everything. We're all just in a better place. And not that I say that was easy for any of us, really. It was hard for a lot of us. But it seems like everybody's in a really good place now. And we're able to look back at that time and just kind of like be more or less thankful that, you know, we've made it out of that. And yeah, I guess weirdly enough, who would have thought, Jay? Fucking, you know, 3 years later, man. Who would have thought? Look at us now, man. Pretty crazy.
What one thing I gotta say from like a fan's perspective of just someone who's not in the world but close enough to people in the world and follow way too many people on social media for my own goodness sake, but you've always owned it. Like, you've always just owned what happened, who you are, what you're going through over your social, whether it's a Q&A that you did, and you've always been vulnerable. And let's call a spade a spade. Like, you're not the only person who's ever got a bad edit on that show, but you are one of the very few people who's owned what happened and tried to clear the air and owned up to mistakes. And you see people who have kind of been a little too stubborn to do that and trying to ride into the sunset with some different things and flamed out. So I think you say everything happens for a reason, but you've definitely, not to pump your tires too much here, but
no, this is the greatest podcast ever, you know?
He'll say this now in the recap. He'll be trashing you, bud. No,
yeah, like Blake. First time I met Blake.
That guy sucks.
But I think, you know, just going off things in the book that Tardik talks about too, as he learned through his transitions, like, just can't say enough to people out there, like, be vulnerable, be your true self. Like, it may not seem like it's paying off today, but tomorrow. And I think a part of your loyalty for your fan base are people that you've converted, which is really awesome. And then just people who have appreciated you just being you, and they feel more part of it. So it's awesome.
Thank you, man. Appreciate that. No, that means a lot. Appreciate it. Yeah. Cause you are one of the few that, like, we called them wildlings. You're a wildling. You're like in the real world, in the free world, but you also are close enough to you understand kind of like how crazy this world can be sometimes. So appreciate that.
Yeah. One thing I got to ask you about too, when it relates to the money stuff, is how badly or negatively or indifferent did it impact you financially after Paradise, when like things weren't in your favor? Like, did deals kind of go away? Did rates go down? What did that world look like?
Good question. I've never really had anybody flat out ask me that. I think people just assume that maybe it got bad, but I wouldn't say it didn't change a ton. In fact, in a weird way, because of how everything played out, you know, during Paradise, then post Paradise, there were some people who were like so passionate about Team Blake, if you will, when it came to brands, that they were like, no, we just want to work with Blake. Like, we'll work with Blake because we think he got screwed. So in a weird way, it didn't change. It's kind of indifferent. It didn't change, you know, whether I made more money or less money. Now some of the, you know, there was a couple times where I had a school event, you know, Q&A booked, and I don't know what happened, but I think they must have like Googled me or something, and they came back and was like, nah, we decided that no, Blake's not the right fit here at this school. So that was something it was based off of my edit on Paradise, you know. So there were probably some you know, opportunities I lost out on, but there were just as many actually that were like, no, we're Team Blake. Like, they'd reach out to my agent and be like, no, like, we're fans of Blake. We think he got he got screwed over, so we want to work with Blake. So it was interesting the way that worked.
It also, and I'll say this because I would just remember, is like, Blake and I have been friends through it all, close friends through it all. You know, I consider you for sure my closest friend from the franchise. And we would talk like during that time, and I'd be like, so what kind of deals you got going? Or he would ask me, and I would be like, yeah, I got this Lavazza coffee deal, and I have State Farm life insurance. And I'd be like, Blake, what kind of deals do you have? He's like, I got Bang Energy. We're doing like sex oils over here. I'm like, oh shit, bro. Our brands are shifting, but at least deals are coming in.
Yeah. Brands are definitely shifted there for a little while for sure. So
I can tell you this, a DJ set's a lot more exciting than talking about careers and money, but hey, to each their own. All right. Well, I really, really wanted to dive into some of your restart stories, where you are today, the highs and lows of your new career. Before I do wrap up, though, David, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good. This has been awesome. We've never had anyone on in the music industry, period. So
cool.
to hear a little bit about that aspect and like the DJ label and live shows and all that, so I got one question though.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit about going back doing the Bachelor. How's the love life, Blake? You single? We going on these shows? What's going on here?
Let's just say I can't complain. I'm in a good spot right now. I got some big news coming up here, actually, very soon. Yeah, I think it'll be a good thing for everybody involved.
So if we go to said show on July 4th, then potentially we will meet.
100%.
This is okay, good.
And here's a question I have for you. And I mean this seriously. You had a tough go your last time on TV. Like, do you see TV in your future?
Yes, I do, but I don't see a dating show in the future. I see a different.
Okay. All right.
So I definitely think I would do another type of show. So.
And then Blake, we have 2 questions that came in from our All Access members. One we're going to answer in our recap, but the one from Laura K, I'd like you to answer before we wrap. What is your favorite song that you play in your set? Your number one go-to?
Ooh, if I feel like, gosh, that's hard because I love sing-alongs, because I just think, listen, you can have the crowd, kind of sway and jump whatever you want, but I think the energy when you hear the crowd and then they hear each other as well. That song, that's Living on a Prayer. I have a remix, Living on a Prayer, that does just absolutely insane. It was actually the one in the video with my videographer where I'm like, hey, let me see you lose your mind. It always hits. It just always hits. Then I go right from that into like Sweet Emotions usually, and that always hits really hard too. So that's probably my favorite like 6-minute part of my set that usually hits. Like I don't think I've only taken that out like once or twice. So.
Okay, then I have
Oldies.
One last follow-up before your trading secret. We're under the trading secret. If us listeners, me, David, anyone listening to this podcast, has the aux cord like you have for all those years, and we have to play one song that in general, the most of the people at the party, the get together, the happy hour will like, what is one song you think we could go to that Spotify and hit, and in general, it will do well?
I'm telling you, man, and as much as I like, a lot of people cringe, it's Mr. Brightside, man. That song hits every time. Like I can't even describe.
Yes, I just started singing it. I'm like,
yeah, dude. Yes, dude. And it's like one of those where like it's like I have a mix that I that's one of my favorite songs to end on, and it's like it'll just play like I usually I'm like my guys, this is my last song, and it's kind of got a weird intro, and then it hits that and it's just like you hear the crowd go oh, and they get so excited. So that would be my number one go-to, Mr. Brightside.
That is amazing. High, lows, energies, left, right, detours. What a freaking career it's been, Blake. It's fun to watch everything you're doing. I could talk to you for another 2 hours about how you're going to continue to grow. The one thing we will do is we're going to because we're so tight, we're going to follow back up with you. Some point in 2023, you're going to come on and let us know if you hit that 7-figure goal.
All right.
What is next for you. But we got to end with one trading secret. One secret about career navigation, financial management, how to make money, lose money that you can't find in a textbook or learn in a classroom. You can only learn from Blake Horstmann. What is one trading secret you can leave us with?
So my trading secret, I learned this a little too late, I think. I wish I would have known this a little younger. And that is honestly, a lot of people don't know what the hell they're doing. Everybody is just treading water, trying to keep their head above water. Whether it be your boss, your teacher, your professor, whoever it is, they really are just trying to figure it out just as much as you. So never feel like an imposter. Never walk into a room feeling like, oh, what am I doing here? What am I doing here? Because the person next to you is thinking the exact same thing. So just know that you belong in that room, and they know just as much as you.
I love that, because like people are going to hear you and it'd be like, yeah, easy for you to say. You got this figured out. You got hopefully 7 figures coming this year. But like, you can attest to that, right? Like you think every day about like, how am I going to, like, what's the next thing, right? You can attest to that same advice you just gave. Yeah.
And like I said, there's still times I walk into a club and I'm like, nobody's going to show up to see me. You know what I mean? And like, or like there was one time I was in Austin and playing a gig, and the guy who was opening for me, I was playing 2 of his remixes there at the beginning of my set. And I'm like, what a weird world DJing is, where this man's music, I'm going to be playing as a headliner, you know? So it's like everybody's just kind of trying to figure it out as we go. And we're all just like leaning on each other and stuff. So yeah, it was really interesting.
And it's a true thing. I'll talk a little bit about it in the recap, but once you like remove, or not remove, but once you age from being on The Bachelorette, it is always a concern that like your relevancy is shot. People don't care. People won't listen. And while that happens a lot, and there's some areas of probably both of our socials and things like that, you do lose engagement. That fear's still there. Like even book tour, I'm like, no one's going to show up. But if you stick to something you love and you continue to pursue it and you're passionate about it, you know, people will follow. So yeah. Unbelievable, Blake. Thank you for the trading secret. Where can people find everything Blake Horstmann, your podcast? If you have something on like Spotify that we could follow, anything and everything Blake Horstmann, where can people find?
Yeah, so on Instagram at balake.h, it's BALOCKAYE.h. Also on Twitter and TikTok as well, balake.h. And really, we didn't have a chance to talk about it too much, but we have a DJ duo with my mentor, DJ Silver, called Official Roadhouse on Instagram. So we got some new music coming out as well. We're doing gigs all over the country, so we're really excited about that. And also my website, if you're looking for some upcoming dates, obviously I'll post that on my socials, but also my website is just blakehorstmann.com. So look for some dates coming up and any kind of promos or anything like that.
Will you ever put anything?
I'm going to follow right now. Official Roadhouse?
Yeah, Official Roadhouse on Instagram. Yeah, appreciate it.
Just followed.
Perfect.
Will you ever put anything on like YouTube so like someone can get familiar with your sets, or like Apple Music or Spotify, where it's like, I want to see what, you know, DJ Blake's sets are all about? I can go on YouTube and watch like a show or something.
Yeah, absolutely. So actually SoundCloud is probably where that's gonna end up being. So everybody who's got, you know, it's a SoundCloud out there, I'm going to create a SoundCloud, and Official Roadhouse will also create a SoundCloud. So yeah, that'll be out there. Keep an eye out for that. I'll let everybody know when that happens. I'll put it up on my website as well. That's what we're kind of waiting to put out, some original music before I start doing that SoundCloud thing. So, but that is in the works.
That is so exciting, dude. I am so excited for you. I am so happy for all your success. It is so fucking fun to watch.
Thank
so
you,
dude,
man. Appreciate that, Jay.
Keep living the dream. As you, it's just funny. It's funny too, man. It's funny how it happens when you find that path and you just keep going. It all blossoms, everything. Yep. And hopefully we'll learn and see more of that here shortly with you. And we're all rooting for you. And thank you for